Salt goes back 70 years, and we're spending obviously a lot of time reflecting this year and just looking back at the past. And we started as funeral administrators because that was what was big in the 1950s.
I mean, we joked about Kofi when we started this conversation and it landing, but Kofi really moves the focus to outcomes and to member-specific outcomes. And this talks to member engagement. It talks to a different way of doing things. And you've been very vocal out there around things like the conduct standard for administrators.
In the member journey that Salt has designed, life events is an entire pillar for us, because when people get divorced, when they get married, when they have kids, there's questions or there's just ignorance. They don't know, so they need to be educated in terms of update your beneficiary nomination form. Do your investments, are you still happy with how they look?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Industry Insights. I'm joined by hopefully someone who is not a stranger to you. That's Nazli Seegers, who is the Chief Experience Officer at Salt Employee Benefits. Salt Employee Benefits are turning 70 this year, and coincidentally, that's the same age as the Pension Funds Act. So Naz and I are going to unpack a little bit about the retirement fund evolution together with the growth and what they're experiencing in their business. So welcome to EBnet Stream, Naz.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much for having us. Hopefully all my grays aren't showing for my 70 years.
Well, no, not yet, but Kofi's still to come.
Absolutely.
I think it's such a great place to start, and that is the kind of evolution of the retirement fund landscape over the last 70 years. I mean, we've seen the DB to DC, then, member investment choice, then things like hyper personalization. And I wonder, let's kind of have a reflective moment looking back over those decades and your past and your business's experience. What would you say have been the kind of the biggest shifts that have happened?
Thank you, Natalie. So listen, Salt goes back 70 years, and we're spending obviously a lot of time reflecting this year and just looking back at the past. And we started as funeral administrators because that was what was big in the 1950s, funeral administrators. And funeral policies are still so huge in South Africa. It's such a big thing. And we were talking to a delegation out of Kenya last week, and they were saying that they're only now starting to see funeral insurance start to pick up, which is so crazy, the difference on the same continent. But so we started as funeral administrators, and I think one of the biggest shifts for us came with the purchase of the business from the Tepe Investment Corporation by our current shareholder, Eddie Stradom. And when he bought the business, he wanted to expand into retirement administration. And so in 2010, 2011, we applied for our licenses, and we were very blessed in that one of the first clients we brought on was the now Transport Sector Retirement Fund. Back then, it was the Road Freight and Logistics Industry Provident Fund. So that was a big shift for our business. We went from risk administration into full retirement fund administration. And then it was a roller coaster ride. Our regulators not sitting on their laurels. They're very busy. So we had first we had the default regs come in. We had the alignment of the pension and the provident funds. We've seen a lot more technology come into play. And of course, probably one of the biggest shifts was the two-part reform that came in. And I think as a business, we've managed to navigate those shifts by always keeping the member at the center of what we do. I think probably you're asking what the biggest shift is. The biggest shift for us as a business was from being so employer and fund-centered to moving and being much more member-centered, to understanding that that's who we serve at the end of the day. That's the outcome that we're all collectively working towards.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because it brings us right up to this moment in this industry where, I mean, we joked about Kofi when we started this conversation and it landing, but Kofi really moves the focus to outcomes and to members, specifically member specific outcomes. And this talks to member engagement. It talks to a different way of doing things. And you've been very vocal out there around things like the conduct standard for administrators, two-pot that you've mentioned. I mean, how has SALT EB had to or rethink your models, the way you engage members? What are you challenged with right now? Where do you see this going?
Great, great question. So I think for us, a massive shift came with COVID, believe it or not. So we'd
Mm.
spent money and time investing in a member portal that was supposed to be very intuitive, easy to use, plain language, simple text, etc. And then the question, even from our own clients, was, well, people won't use it. How are you going to get them to use it? I don't want to say COVID was a good thing, but COVID was definitely an accelerator for the technology that we utilize. It's called the Benefit Counselor. It's a platform that we white label for all our clients. And we sort of were on 5 members the day before COVID hit, and a month into COVID, we were on hundreds of thousands of the members that we service. And so COVID, I think, changed the way the world works in that it forced people to engage with technology. So that was a big push for SALT and a big assist for SALT in that we utilize technology as a tool. It's not the be all and end all of our business, but it is a very, very big enabler for our business. It helps us to do the things we do at scale. Saying that, Natalie, SALT has always understood that our focus is in sector funds. Those are not members that automatically have access, that automatically have the cash flow to travel to the administrator all the time. And so what we've done is we've utilized the multi-channel approach. So we've got physical offices where people can go into, we've got call centers, we've got WhatsApp chat centers, the member portals, etc. But just to add, we added satellite offices. So these are mobile vans on wheels, fully equipped offices that travel into the rural regions because those people either don't know or don't have the access to be able to get to us. So we go to them. We send out communication and we say the van's in the area this week. If there's any queries or any claims or anything that you need to talk to us about, please come through. And that's true for all our funds. So we found that a multi-channel approach is important because you're obviously dealing with people at different stages in their retirement journey. The youngsters coming in love the tech. They play on it, they know what's going on, etc. But the older people that are, about to retire, they want a warm body. They want somebody to sit and talk to them and explain to them. So, and the technology enables that. It allows us to be able to bring that human aspect back in. They can book virtual counseling sessions with us through the app, or they can walk into an office, or we can send a van out, or they can do it via telephone or Teams or whatever. So I think for us, the technology really just enables us to bring the human touch back into this journey for members.
Mm. That's an interesting one because you talk about multi-channel approach, which talks to really the distribution channels of getting the comms out there. I mean, are you doing anything around a kind of life stage approach, meaning that a lot of the conversation in our industry is now shifting towards integrated benefits and, speaking to Natalie when it's relevant to Natalie, she's getting married
Yes,
or she's having a kid or she's paying tax or whatever.
yes.
Where do you see that going? What are you guys doing to get ready for that?
Absolutely. So great question. We're not 100% there yet. We've started the work, but we're not 100% there yet. And it's funny that you ask. In the member journey that SALT has designed, life events is an entire pillar for us because when people get divorced, when they get married, when they have kids, there's questions or there's just ignorance. They don't know, so they need to be educated in terms of update your beneficiary nomination form. Do your investments, are you still happy with how they look? Your risk cover, is there an option to increase that cover? Do you need to increase that cover? In fact, where we have done a bit of work is in terms of funeral benefits. We found that members pay almost as much as their provident fund contributions in funeral premiums at funeral parlors, etc. And so we've spent time talking to members and saying, this is adequate for what you've got. Perhaps you should take that additional money and put it into a savings component. So understanding where the members at that point in time. In addition, we're using data extensively to target interventions. So if I use two-part as an example, we're seeing members that were dissuaded because of the tax, but we're also seeing a group of members that were here in September 24 to claim, March 25 to claim, March 26 to claim. And so we're sitting and looking at their data, age profile, which employers do they work for, what sort of job are they in, so that we can go back to them and say, we've built a calculator in this member portal that we talk about that shows them what it does to their long-term retirement savings. But the next step for us is, which is why we're mining the data at this point in time, is to have a physical discussion with this guy and say to, or this lady, and say to her, you really are impacting on your future savings. Why are you withdrawing all the time? Let us help you understand if there's alternate products that can help you with whatever it is that is causing you to withdraw every year. So we have we've started a little unit in the business. It's brand new, but that will focus on data mining to understand trends, analyze those trends, and go back to boards and say, this is what we're seeing. Perhaps we need to look at a new benefit. Perhaps we need to look at different communication. Perhaps we need to have sessions with these people and introduce individual financial planning. So that's what SALT has already started with. So that we can add better value to the members and just help with, I think people look a lot at what the regulation does. But I spoke at Patsita and I was saying there that the investments can do 6% or 10%, let's say we're generous and it does a beautiful 10% consistently. But if you have a member that's coming in and out of the fund all of the time, that 10% is not going to give him the same value as the member who stayed there consistently and got the returns. So member behavior is something that we're actively focusing on so that we can change those behaviors to get the outcomes that we want.
It's definitely a theme that is emerging. And in fact, last week I heard it referred to as behavioral alpha. So,
Yes.
There's the investment performance alpha, and then there's this behavior of the individual to kind of catch them from hurting themselves or stopping them from hurting themselves, or at least if they do need to take a withdrawal, kind of encouraging them to understand the consequences of that withdrawal. But this kind of catch the member where they are in their journey needs an administration capability or platform that doesn't look like it looked 70 years ago. And if we think about the conduct standard, if we think about the expectations of COFI, even the expectations of the regulator in terms of building trust, which you've mentioned, I mean, a quick reflection and a quick kind of look into the future. What do admin systems look like now, and where do you see opportunity in terms of designing those or any evolutions in those going forward?
Thank you, Natalie. And so it's more than just for us, the member. We're looking at the entire ecosystem, and we'll be launching it in September this year from a systems point of view. Because as much as the member has impact or needs impact from the system, we find that the source data comes from the employer. And in many instances, the employers don't have the systems that we think that they should have in place. They don't have the infrastructure that we think that they should have in place. And so what we want to do is enable that, if you will, is enable that so that we give them an easy solution so that the data coming in, for systems, they say rubbish in, rubbish out, so that we enable the employers to give us good data, but also for themselves to hold good data as an employer that will assist them. From a systems perspective, it's no longer just a view into the system. I think for us in particular, two-part change that. People transact on our member portal. All our two-part claims are done via our member portal. Our normal withdrawals are now going to be done via our member portal. Beneficiary nominations are done via our member portal. And all of that is aggregated and tracked in dashboards. So we can see this guy's changing his beneficiaries every third month. Is he fighting with his wife, or does he not understand, that this thing is for if he passes away? Um, so data mining, data mining, data mining. But your front end systems need to be, number one, plugged directly into your back end system. Members don't want to be gone are the days where you get a benefit statement annually and that's what tells you what's happening on your fund. Real-time access. And so we've plugged our member portal into our back end and it reads real-time values. And for us, it's also accountability, Natalie, because what it does is if the contributions landed and the administrator hasn't allocated, the member can see it. The employer can see it. And so it's accountability is holding us to our SLAs, ensuring that we do our job too. But the converse is true too. If the employer hasn't paid, then the member can see it. The administrator can say, but the payment's not here yet, and the member can go and hold the employer accountable. So I find that there'll be a lot more transparency, more accountability. On one of the funds we administer, we saw massive complaints go to the OPFA as a result of it. But what it did, yes, it's painful because it's a lot of complaints. But now what it means is I don't have to face a 65-year-old that's getting ready for retirement and say to him at that point in time, I'm so sorry, Baba, your benefit isn't what you thought it is. Now I'm telling him at 40, your employer is not paying, boss. We need to make a plan to sort this out. So I think that systems they'll have to interact all the time. They'll have to engage all the time. But it does mean a lot more accountability. It means the member's going to say, I'm not on track for retirement. Guys, what's the plan here? How do we get this right? And as an administrator and as a board of fund, which we're an extension of, we'll have to come to the party and say, your behavior is what impacted it. We did tell you yeah. Or if you start doing this is how. So it's no longer just about receipting of contributions and paying of claims or retirement benefit at the end. Now we're living this journey together. And ideally, that's what you want from an outcomes perspective.
I love this picture that you paint of living this journey together, because it talks to a structural basis that our industry is built on. You do admin, you do financial planning, I do EB consulting, and the poor human at the end of this whole chain has to kind of piece it all together themselves. And really, if we look at kind of what's happening overseas in some of the other jurisdictions, we're starting to see systems and admin systems integrate. The tax system integrates with the benefit system, integrates with everything. And I wonder, how realistic is that in a South African administration context?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely think it's doable. I think the days where we said, it's so difficult and, we don't want to play together anymore, those days are gone. We all have to play together now. We're all servicing the same member, and there must be groupthink here. We are all components, and it's a cogs in a wheel. If one doesn't work, that wheel's not going to turn. And so I think it's maybe a psychological thing that we need to push past as an industry. But from a technology point of view, oh, absolutely. I mean, our back-end systems already integrate directly with SARS for tax directives, etc. So if you've got the tax guy on board, why is anybody else complaining? And tech has evolved so much. I mean, with the introduction of artificial intelligence and all this new tech that's out there, nothing is impossible anymore. We've got to be careful, of course. What we are seeing is an uptake in cybercrime. I think that's the new frontier, and we'll have to work as a collective to combat these things. So I think there needs to be, institutions like the IRFA, BATSITA, those are going to be critical in starting these conversations. EBnet, discussions like this, to start thinking differently as an industry and stop seeing each other as, well, I've passed it off to the administrator, it's their problem now. The administrator is a gold mine of data for the investment manager, for the actuary, for the board of fund, for the EB consultant. So we've all got to work together and leverage off each other in the interest of the member to get the outcome that we collectively want for that member.
Looking a little bit broader and zooming out a bit, and as we talk about involving the member more, some of the conversation is around involving more members.
Yes.
And what is auto enrollment, or greater coverage, or micro pensions, and these are kind of ideas that are now on the periphery of the radar and the conversation, although I think the regulator's looking at them a little bit more in depth. But
Yes.
how do you see, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge? Is it administration? What is the biggest challenge of something like an auto enrollment, or the biggest stumbling block to increasing coverage?
For me, it's not systems or anything like that. It's the trust gap. So I think that we've got to build our trust stack in South Africa. We have members who don't trust the system because they don't understand it. We've got to educate. To say I'm going to take whatever the micro pension is or auto enrollment is of your salary every month and we're going to put it in a fund, that's not an issue. Systems can do that. I mean, the receiver takes their tax when they want it. So that the practical infrastructure, I don't think is the problem. I think it's the trust. People don't trust the system because they don't understand the system. And so we've got to make the language plainer, use more graphics, explain it a bit more. Because once you've got people's buy-in, then you automatically see higher levels of compliance. One of the big funds that we administer has probably one of the higher non-compliance rates in the industry. And so for us, that's a social project for SALT as much as it is a business client. Because if you can get auto enrollment right in one of the biggest sectors in the country, or get the enrollment right and get the compliance ratios right, then you're making a business case for auto enrollment. And our experience and our engaging in the sector has been that it's trust. People don't trust. Employers don't trust that the money is going where it should be. Members don't trust that they're going to get the outcome that they should get. And so trust is where we should be focusing in as an industry. Stop using jargon. Stop using words above people's that people don't understand. Simplify it. Bring them on board with you. Understand that they have a seat at the table. It's their cash. They have a seat at the table. So include them, Don't say, give me your money. I'm going to sort it out and I'll see you when you retire or you'll get something. I think that mentality needs to shift if we want auto enrollment to become a reality.
As we wrap up and we reflect on your 70-year success record and track record and milestone really in this industry, you really talk about empowering better retirement outcomes. Certainly your outlook is very refreshing. Your systems are integrated and doing well. What do you see SALT's contribution to the industry as?
So, interesting question, actually. As part of our 70th celebrations, if you will, we are doing a coffee table book. And so we're looking back and we're asking all players in the industry for input in terms of the journey here. But as much as we're celebrating the legacy, the most important thing for us is what does the next 70 require of us? And I think for us, that is cradle to grave solutions. It is a solution that says to the member, when you engage with us, when your kid is born, this is what you do, this is how it works. And a system that flags these things. So it's not that, you catch it 3 years later that the person's had a child. The system must be built in. We were talking earlier about the life cycle of the member. Really, we want to get to a point where the member portal is where they log in to update a beneficiary, the child comes on, and then everything else spins off from there. So you want to make it accessible and easy, all financial products, so that it's not, I'm going to withdraw my two-pot because I'm having a child, rather that we help them plan sufficiently so that by the time they have the child, there's no need to withdraw from the two-pot, so that we can ultimately, we want to get to a point where everybody has a net replacement ratio that is decent, not just 5 or 10% of the population, where the greater bit of the population, is seeing that they can actually survive in retirement. And the reason for that, Natalie, is because when we don't achieve that, what we see is that that generation then puts pressure on the generation below them. And then the cycle just continues. It just continues. And so what we want to do with systems and data and trends and responsiveness to these trends is to break that cycle, is to be able to get to a point where, our kids are not worried that we'll be reliant on them because we haven't planned adequately for retirement, because just we weren't educated enough.
Mm. Nasli, it's such a beautiful picture that you paint, and it's certainly something I subscribe to as well. This environment where financial planning is not difficult. It's a life skill that everybody has access to, and I think I agree with you. We do have the tools at our disposal to achieve that. I love this word groupthink. I think I might steal it. And thank you very much for your time this morning. It is very early for those of you who are watching. Naz did wake up very early to spend some time with us. So thanks, Nazli Seegers, the Chief Experience Officer at SALT. Thank you for sharing your journey. Congratulations on 70 years. I look forward to talking about and revealing and surfacing your conversations over the next 70.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Natalie.